All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the elder bishops, and the elders of the great millstone, and peace and salutations to the hopeful elect out here toiling in this truth. Bathaka Moth, GMS Dallas. Just coming back at you with a really quick hit lesson and a shalom to the few sisters, the Akwathium, who listen and learn in silence. To all of you, I say shalom. I'm the brother Pathakamat GMS Dallas. I'm just coming back at you with a really quick hit lesson. And I'm going to simply entitle this one, Jake Don't Know They Have Enemies, man. You know? Yeah, Jake don't know they have enemies. The average so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American in America today don't realize that they have enemies, man. You know what I'm saying? Which one of the main components or reasons of that is because they don't know who they are. You know, they don't understand and realize that they are the true biblical Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, man. You know, the Most High and his son, you know, which the Most High, his true biblical name is Yahweh, and his only begotten son, whom the world ignorantly refers to as, JC, Jesus Christ. His true biblical name is Yahweh Shai, man. You know, these two entities, you know, Jake don't understand that they're the chosen people of these entities, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians of Negro descent. You know, you make up the 12 no longer lost tribes of the nation of Israel. We know who we are now. We know who our enemies are, which is all 17 other nations outside of the nation of Israel. There's 18 nations on the planet. All 17 other nations are your enemies, but primarily the so-called self-proclaimed white man, woman, and child, who are biblically the red Hebrew Edomites. You know what I'm saying? The first came out red all over like a hairy garment. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you know, who go back to their forefather Esau, who for one morsel of raw meat, you know, sold his birthright. You know, the same people, man, the same devils. You know, so but as the title reflects, Jake don't know that they have enemies. Yeah, Jake don't realize that they're the Israelites. And when you go into the prophecies in the Bible clearly tells you that we have Salaki, we have enemies. So, you know, we'll get into some scriptures just to make that point and get in and get out. I don't want to make this too long. Just proving that you know, just because Jake's head is in the dirt like an ostrich, you know, hey, it don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? Unbeknownst to them, you know, yeah. And they're going to find out, the majority of our people are going to find out the hard way, which a lot of them are waking up to it and finding these things out. But, you know, hey, the majority of our people, 2/3 of our people refuse to hearken to truth, man, to the knowledge, to these words. And it's going to be to their own detriment, man. They're going to find out the hard way that they got enemies, man. You know what I'm saying? So without any further ado, let's just get into some scriptures just to prove that point, man. So the first one I want to get is going into the curses, man, right off the top. You know, we went off on our power, and our power put curses on us in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, which we'll start from read verse 15, and then we'll jump down. As you can see in the heading, it says consequences of disobedience, and that's exactly what happened. We were disobedient to our power, and boom, you know, that's what happened, man. Deuteronomy 28:15, it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt hearken if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And that's exactly what happened. We were disobedient. We did not hearken to the voice of the Lord, you know, even after we said that we would. You know, we the whole thing with Moses and the sprinkling of the blood, you know, on the congregation. We said we'll do whatever the Lord wanted us to do, whatever the Lord said, and then we turned right around and went against that, man. you know. And Jake has been doing that ever since. You know, the Jake is hard-headed, man. That's why the Lord continuously calls us hard-headed, stiff-necked, uncircumcised people, man. You know, sottish, which is stupid, you know, foolish. All these things are, you know, compared to the ox and the ass, man. Two of the most stubborn animals on the planet, man. You know what I'm saying? That's Jake. It's how you know who the people are, man. You know, the people of the Bible are. You know, so we didn't hearken, man. So let's get to the point and jump down to and it goes into the various different things that was gonna come upon our people. These various different curses. As a matter of fact, I'll just start right here, you know, because the Lord's one of those punishments or you know, things we would have to that was going to come upon us is this. You know, the curses is this right here, Deuteronomy 28:64. It says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor their fathers have known, even wood and stone." So that's one of the curses that was put upon us as a punishment. The Lord said He was going to scatter us among all people, you know, from one end of the heaven to the other. That means all four corners of the earth. We're going to get put among these heathen, which is our enemies, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's how we went off and serving the other gods and, you know, the whole nine, you know. But let's jump down to the point now in verse 68, which is going to prove we got enemies. This is Deuteronomy 28:68. It says, "And the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships." It says with ships into Egypt again, which Egypt represents bondage. You know, as a matter of fact, real quick, let's just prove that. Exodus chapter 13 and verse 3. And it says, "And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage." That's what Egypt represents, the house of bondage, which is slavery. Bondage is slavery, man. You know, "For by strength of the hand the Lord brought you out from the place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten." So, but the point was Egypt represents bondage. So we'll go back now to Deuteronomy 28:68. Deuteronomy 28:68. So now that we know what Egypt represents, you can put it in the context as we're reading it. "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, the house of bondage," into bondage, slavery, again with ships. Now, with proper understanding, you understand that we walked into Egypt the first time when we were over in the land. So you don't need a ship to go into Egypt. So this is not talking about the actual physical land of Egypt. It's talking about slavery. So we were going to go in slavery by ships is what the Lord was saying. But there is a place that's spiritually known as Sodom and Egypt. So real quick, let's get that real quick. It's Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8. And it reads, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt," spiritually, "where also our Lord was crucified." You know, so it says their dead bodies, not talking about physically dead, it's talking about spiritually dead. Our people got scattered, and the majority of them are right here, that great city, which is America, Babylon the Great, America the Great, make America great again. It's talking about right here, man. You know, this is the most confusing place on the planet, man. You know, Babylon, confusion, Babel. You know, that's America in these times, man. So it was telling us that we were going to go to America in ships, you know, into slavery, man. And that happened during the time of the transatlantic slave trade. Salakia, man, bro. But which started, mind you, in 1492. You know what I'm saying? That's when that slave trade began with the Northern Kingdom. You know, the Southern Kingdom went later in the 1600s, but it began in 1492. Just so, you know, you have proper understanding. You know, most people only refer to when slavery is mentioned, the Southern Kingdom, the so-called blacks, but the Hispanics, the Native Americans went into captivity before them, you know, in 1492. They start moving them around, you know what I'm saying? And then in the 1600s, it landed upon the Southern Kingdom. So, you know, this history needs to be known. You know, got a lot of Hispanics out there don't know this history. And they did that on purpose. Esau did that. So, they wouldn't realize that they were the same people, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, keep that division between our nation, man, which is that, hey, the scriptures go into that middle wall of partition being taken down by Yahushua, man. You know what I'm saying? So their dead bodies lying in the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, which is America. So there's a spiritual Egypt. So when the scriptures say we were going to go into Egypt again with ships, that's what it's talking about. We were going to come into spiritual Egypt, which is America, by way of ships, into slavery. Transatlantic slave trade is what that translates into. Let's drop back down to 68. It says, Deuteronomy 28:68, and the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. Talking about our homeland, Israel, which we haven't. Those people in the land today are not the people. And there, Salakia, ye shall be sold unto your enemies. Hello, not your friends, your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, the house of bondage, slavery, slave men and slave women. You're going to be sold unto your enemies. Who were you sold to on them auctioning? Who had you on them auctioning blocks? The so-called self-proclaimed white man, woman, and child, man. So, yeah, man, those are your enemies, not your friend. Again, all 17 other nations outside of the nation of Israel are your enemies, but your primary enemy is the so-called self-proclaimed white man. So, and really, you can, if you can't see that in these times, you see how Trump is moving. These ICE agents, all them, look at them, the majority of them. Look at them. Now, of course, we got sellout Jakes out here. They've always been selling out. Jake will sell out for a bag of chips. But you can buy a nigga cheap, but, Salakia, excuse my French, but it is what it is. Just real, man. You know what I'm saying? Jake will sell out. You hear these niggas, I'll sell my soul for $100 million, for what is that Shannon Sharp said? I think he said 50 million. You know what I'm saying? So these dudes, Jake or sellouts there. You can buy nigga cheap, man. These niggas will sell out for the right amount of money. That's why Terrence Crawford in that interview was like, hey, man, beautiful example of how you should be in the mindset, man, where these devils are concerned, because he said that you're selling your soul at that point, He said there's no amount of money that will get him back in the ring. And that dumbass nigga said he'll for 100 million, you can have his soul, roughly paraphrasing. So Jake will sell out, man. So yeah, there are sellouts, but I'm talking about, look at the primary face of the primary of these ICE agents, man. They're Edomites, man. So yeah, your enemies, man. And they doing all kind of manner of things to the women and children, and hey, man, it's just, boy, the devils, man, the wicked. So it says, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies. So you have enemies, man. The Lord is letting you know you got enemies. That's who put you on them slave ships and was selling you, man. And it ain't changed, For bondmen and bondwomen, it says, and no man shall buy you or redeem you, man. It says, why none of these attempts have prospered. They've all failed. Black Wall Street, the Black Panther Party. There was several different Haitian revolts and, such, man. Everything failed, man. And it's going to continue to fail. Because the Redeemer is our big brother Yahushua, and that's who's going to save us, man. So, yeah, you got enemies, Jake. It's right there in the prophecy of the curses that we're under. Your enemies, man. So, real quick, let's go to Psalms 83. Let's get it. This is Psalms chapter 83, and we just start at the top. Point is in verse 2, but I'm gonna read down. It says, this is Psalms 83:1, a psalm of Asaph. It says, keep not thou silence, O power, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. Here's the point. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. So enemies, man, the enemies of the Lord are the same as is for his people, man. You know what I'm saying? They gonna hate the Lord but love his people? Stop, bro. They hate you too. They hate the Lord and they hate the people of the Lord. which are the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians of Negro descent. It says, verse 3, it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Do you hear that? So they're your enemies too, man. You know, you have enemies, Jake. It says, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, which for a period of time they did, man, successfully. You know, it says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And for a period of time that took place, man, you know, and really for the majority of our people in these times, it's still in a full effect. They don't know that they're the Israelites, man. You know, again, a lot of Jake is starting to wake up in these times to the fact, you know, a whole lot of Jake, you know, but the majority is still oblivious, man, to the fact. You know what I'm saying? So that cutting the name, that they won't remember, that the name of Israel will be no more in remembrance happened, man, which was the Lord at the end of the day. He said, he told us in Jeremiah 17:4, we were going to discontinue from our heritage that he gave us, man. We were going to lose everything, you know, and we did. We lost everything, you know, but we're in the time of Isaiah, the 10th chapter, the remnant returning, you know, and we're in beautiful times, man. The Israelites are waking up, and that great awakening is happening throughout the four corners, man. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So we're in beautiful times. But it says, verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, and they still are to this very day. That's why you have the UN, the United Nations. That's why you don't have a seat on the UN, man. Because that crafty council, that council back then is still in effect, full effect today with those same nations. Of course, other nations are added to it now, and it's just bigger, but it's the same thing, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to go into it, though. It says, and they're confederate against you. That's why when they have those UN meetings, man, you are not invited, bro, because they still to this very day trying to figure out how to keep you down, man. You know? But let's read this. This is verse 6. It says the tabernacles of Edom, the very first ones listed, the so-called self-proclaimed white man, woman and child, the Edomites, man, at the top of the list. Back then, still to this very day, man, they're your primary enemy. And the Ishmaelites, which are the Arabs of Moab, which are the Chinese, and the Hagarenes, I can't remember exactly who those are. The Gabal and Ammon, which Ammon is the Japanese, and Amalek, which are those small hatters, man, in the land. The Philistines, which are Africans, and the inhabitants of Tyre, which are more Ishmaelites, man, and the Arabs, you know, those Palestinians. It says, Ashur also joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot, Selah. So, but the point was at the top of that list is Edom, man. You know what I'm saying? The Edomites, man. You know what I'm saying? That's your primary enemy, which you do have enemies. We just read it in verse 2. You know, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. So, and it says that, and it goes on to go into that counsel against the people of the Lord. So the Lord's enemies are your enemy, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, hey, bro, Jake better wake up, man. You know, let's get Jeremiah, the 30th chapter. And we're going to drop down to verse 11. As a matter of fact, let me see. Verse 11, it says, for I am with thee, saith Yahweh Shai, to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee. Now, why is the Lord going to make a full end of the nations where we've been scattered? Because they're our enemies, and they've been doing all manner of madness to the Lord's people, which is the apple of his eye, pursuant to Zechariah. You know, the book of Zechariah, I believe it's the 2nd chapter. You know, you've put your hand on the wrong people. You put your hand on the apple of the Lord's eye. You know, now you're going to have to pay for that. So he's going to make a full end to these nations, man. You know what I'm saying? So Jeremiah 30:11, for I am with thee. So the Lord said he's with his people, man. He's with Israel. You know what I'm saying? The elect, and the beginning and starting with the elect in these times. said the Lord, to save thee. So he's going to save his people, man. Salvation, we're at the cusp of salvation now, man. You know, though I make that's why the scripture tell you in Romans the 13th chapter, Romans the 13 and 11, I believe, it's high time to wake out of sleep, for thou salvation is nearer than thou when thou believest, believed, roughly paraphrasing, man. You know what I'm saying? So we're in those times. It says, though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee, yeah, he gonna destroy these nations, man. You know, yet will I not make a full end of thee. He's not gonna destroy Jake though, man. And that reminds me of Baruch, so we'll get that in a sec. It says, but I will correct thee in measure and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Yeah, because we had to be punished, man, for going off, man. You know what I'm saying? So he was going to have to give us a portion of an ass whooping, you know, not to fully destroy us, but enough to make his point, man, you know, because Jake is hard-headed. So we had to get that punishment, man. As a matter of fact, before I get that, let's get that and then I'll come back. Let's get that one in Baruch real quick, because that reminds me of Baruch. And then we'll come back. Where's that? Baruch 4 and 6. This is Baruch chapter 4 and verse 6. It says, ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction. Yeah, not to destroy us, but because ye moved the Most High to wrath. Ye were delivered unto the enemies. Boom. So we were delivered into the hands of our enemies for bringing our power to wrath, man, you know, by going off, you know, idol worship, you know, Jake is highly into to this very day. Idol worship. They love idols. Mary, you know, Mother Mary and hell, Jebus. That's an idol, man. You know what I'm saying? All these things that Jake is still caught up into to today, you know, this very day, you know, same thing. So, but it wasn't for our destruction, but because we moved the Most High to wrath, man, he delivered us into the hands of our enemies. Do you see that right there at the end of the verse of Baruch 4 and 6? Ye were delivered unto the enemies. Yeah. The Lord delivered us into the hand of our enemies because we moved him to wrath, because we went off, man. You know what I'm saying? So you have enemies, Jake. Stop with the madness. So coming back to Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, you know, we had to be punished, but the Lord, it don't end right there, man. As a matter of fact, there's better things. The Lord is going to deal with these nations for putting their hands on us. Like I said, they put their hands on the apple of the Most High's eye. Jeremiah 30 and 15. Why criest thou for thine affliction? What affliction? The affliction that these nations were putting on us, being scattered among them because they're our enemies, these heathen, man. They're our enemies. It says, thy sorrow. What sorrow? We were in sorrow? Yeah, these heathen were putting it to Jake's ass, man. You know, it's incurable for the multitude of thine iniquities, because thy sins were increased. So Jake was going off. I have done these things unto you. And that's why we got put in captivity, man. Scattered. Deuteronomy 28 and 64 is why I read that, because we were scattered among these heathen. And basically they could have their way with, so the Lord could allow them to have their way with us for a period of time, man, for punishment, man, for going off, you know. But here's what we got coming. Verse 6. Now, the tides are changing, man. You know, the like that movie with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, Trading Places. You know, everything is about to change, man. Jeremiah 30 and 16. Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. So they were devouring Jake, man. They were devouring our people, man. You know, among these heathen, which is our enemies. That's the sorrow and the affliction, man, that we just read in the previous verse. It says, therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, you know, every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So everything that they've done is going to come back on them. And the scriptures say it's going to come back on them double, man. So they going into slavery. They put us into slavery. They're going into slavery. But the point is, Jake, you got enemies, man. You know what I'm saying? So you need to wake up to the simple fact, bro. You know, you got enemies, bro. As a matter of fact, Let's get this one in Micah, because the Lord told us that coming over here was going to be a punishment. You know, you got Jake coming to America and trying to flourish, and they want to build here and all this madness, man. You know, stop. This is Micah chapter 2 and verse 10. It says, arise ye and depart. And that don't mean physically. In these times, talking about spiritually. You know, you get your mind out of this place. Don't do the things. Don't do by the ordinances of Egypt, like it says in what's that, in Leviticus? Is it Leviticus? I believe it's in Leviticus. You know, the ordinances of Egypt, man, the ways of Canaan. You know, the land of Canaan where we were, and the same thing now. We've been bought here. You know, and Jake wanna you know. Jake always assimilate into these, you know, these captivities. We assimilate into the society, and then want to build, want to prosper, want to grow, and chill and be comfortable and stay here, man. No, in these captivities, man. You know, because it gets a little more comfortable than the beginning of it. You know, stop, bro. You know, Micah 2 and 10, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. This is not your rest, bro. These captivities we get put in is not our rest. You know, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you, even with a sword destruction. And bro, that happened, man. Our nation is through. You know, sword destruction happened, you know, by way of our enemies, which of course was the will of the Lord. The Lord allowed these things to happen, man, as a punishment to prove to his people, you know what I'm saying, what not to do, which is go against the Lord, man. You know what I'm saying? So let's get this one real quick. Just, you know, just proving that point that Jake got enemies, you know, because Jake don't believe they got enemies, man. This is Ecclesiasticus Sirach, chapter 12 and verse 10. Now, why would the Lord say this if you ain't got no enemies? Ecclesiasticus Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy, because you have enemies. And the primary enemy, and who this is talking about, is Esau. These Edomites, the so-called self-proclaimed white man, woman, and child. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So this dude is guaranteed wicked, you know, and we're never to trust him, man, you know. So, boom, Jake, again, another one proving that you have enemies. So we get one more, and then we'll end it on this one right here. Let's get Ezekiel. What is that? Ezekiel, 39. 39, and we're going to drop down to verse 23. We're just going to read down a little bit. You know, this is Ezekiel 39 and 23. And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, which iniquity is sin upon sin, because they trespassed against me. Therefore hid I my face from them and gave them into the hand of their enemies. Who are you enslaved to? Which you're still in their hands, man. To this very day. We're still in our captive lands. The scripture, and to this day, the scriptures tell you that as well. So these Edomites, so fell they all by the sword. So the Lord hid his face from us for a period of time, which reminds me, let me get this. Let me get this real quick, because those things are all coming to an end. What is that? Isaiah. Let's get that in Isaiah real quick. Salakia, Isaiah 54, I believe it is. 54 and verse 7. This is Isaiah 54 and verse 7, and it reads, for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. And of course, that small moment to us has been long as hell, man, because the scriptures tell you, what's that in? Is it Salakia? Satan is really trying to block me, man, on my scriptures, man. Where it says that a day to the Lord is as one day to the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day to the, you know. So I can't remember exactly where it is right now, but that's how it's quoted, roughly paraphrasing. 1,000 years to us is one day to the Lord, and a day to the Lord is 1,000 years as 1,000 years to us. So, you know, that small moment, it would seem to us like a long time, you know what I'm saying? Because the difference of the time, you know, the time frames in the different realms. But it says, for a small moment, Isaiah 54 and 7, for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. Verse 8, it says, in a little wrath I hid my face. I hid my face from thee. Same thing we just read, for a moment. But with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith Yahweh Shemel Shai, thy Redeemer. And that's what we have coming. So the Lord hid his face from us for a period of time because we went off, man. You know what I'm saying? Going back to everything that's been going on since the very beginning of this lesson, man. You know what I'm saying? Proving that we have enemies. The Lord gave us into the hand of those enemies, man, because of our trespasses, our iniquity, our going off, man. You know what I'm saying? But he said, and the heathen shall, back in Ezekiel 39:23, and the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity. So they're going to know why, they won't get them answers, man. You know what I'm saying? So, because they trespassed against me, therefore hid I my face from them and gave them into the hand of their enemies. So their enemies, bro, not their friends, so fell they all by the sword. And that's why you've been getting put to death, man, because you're in the hands of your enemies. These enemies are above you right now, man. Verse 24, according to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions have I done unto them and hid my face from them. Yep. But check this right here. Israel restored. It's not to say all be all. It's not the end. Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. There's something else coming after this, man. There were two blessings given. You know what I'm saying? There's another side of a manifest destiny, man. It don't end right there. You're going to get the big payback, Esau. All these nations, but primarily these devils, man. Because like the scriptures say in Zechariah, the 1st chapter, he helped further the affliction, man. He was sore displeased with the heathen. You know what I'm saying? Because Esau took it a little too far, man. Well, hell, a lot too far. He took it too far. Verse 25 says, therefore, thus saith Yahweh Shemel Shai power, now will I bring again the captivity of Jacob. Yeah, he's going to take it. He's going to take it back and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel. That's all 12 tribes, and will be jealous for my holy name. After that, they have borne their shame, which we did, and all their trespasses whereby they have trespassed against me when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid, when I have bought them again from the people and gathered them out of their enemies' land. So, boom, enemies. You're in your enemies' lands right now, man. Wherever all the places we've been scattered, Jake is still there, man. Just coming up in them, and like they whatever, if they're in the UK or in France or Italy or Greece or where Africa or wherever here in the Americas, Colombia, some of those those Spanish places, Chile and all them different places we've been scattered, man. You know what I'm saying? He said he's going to bring us out of those lands. Those are the lands of our enemies, man. We've been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, man. Going back to the curses in Deuteronomy 28 and 64. So when I have bought them again from the people and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, your enemies' lands. We got enemies, Jake. Stop, bro. And sanctified in them in the sight of many nations, because they're going to see it. That's why they're going to know. It says the enemies are going to know that we went into captivity for our iniquities. Then shall they know that I am the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, their power, who caused them to be led into captivity. There it is, among the heathen. Who are your enemies? Let's get it, man. But I have gathered them unto their own land and have left none of them anymore there. So he's going to gather all of the nation of Israel, beginning to start with the elect, and they ain't going to leave none of us, man. You know what I'm saying? Lord, we're not going to be a part of that. It says, verse 29, neither will I hide my face any more from them, for I have poured out my spirit upon the house of Israel, saith Yahweh Shemel Shai power. So there it is, man. You know what I'm saying? The Lord is going to save his people out of the hands and out of the lands of their enemies, man, because you do have enemies, bro. So with that, hopefully this was edifying to the hopeful elect, giving all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Wahakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the elder bishops, and the elders of the great millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect, the house of David, the Bayath Shah Dawadah Shalom.